up.
Yay! That was amazing. I loved it.
Hey, everybody. It's the Maple Syrup Show. It is 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time where Erica and I are. Mike, where are you actually at right
I
now?
am in New York City, and it's the same time for me, 9 o'clock Eastern.
Hey, wonderful. I actually didn't know you were in New York City.
Oh yeah, I'm in Astoria, Queens. It's
That's
it's
not
the
far
city.
from my other offices, like
Oh
That's right.
ish.
snap! Yeah, yeah. I got a lot of people in this area, a lot of play testers up in this area. It's a great place to be.
Good stuff. Good
Hmm
stuff. So we're here with Which Game First podcaster Mikey Grenier. Is it Grenier? Is that how you pronounce it?
That is the correct way to pronounce it. Thank you very much.
Unless you're American.
Well,
Yes, it's if you want to be all American,
Yeah.
it's Grenier.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
I
so
know.
I had this came up recently. We were
Hmm
in Vegas for Dice Tower West, and I'm trying to think what foyer
Oh, the
came out.
Oh,
foyer.
the
Yes.
foyer.
And actually asked without prompting of any
hmm
kind, like, okay, because the French thing came up. It's like, well,
hmm
how do you pronounce these things? And it's
Uh-huh.
like, well, you like when you understand the endings, it changes
hmm
how you pronounce them, right? So
hmm
it's foyer, it's not foyer. Or like, like the idea of like, okay, people still say ballet, and
hmm
it's like that's acceptable. Look, but that's how you learn for French.
hmm
It's like the et,
Yeah.
there's no vowel on the end, so you don't say the t, you don't
Yep.
say ballet. Right?
They like to
That's
keep the end very soft and
right.
smooth.
So it's like there's things that could train you, but like
hmm
it depends on how much you
Nope.
pay attention. And obviously, we learned French,
hmm
but
The
Foyer
foyer.
Fourier came
hmm
up, and so your last name is a perfect segue into that exact
Grenier.
same thing.
I
It
appreciate it.
all
I
relates
honestly
to
don't expect it
that.
anymore for anybody to pronounce it correctly. So it's
Unless they
nice.
know some French.
And that's,
Yeah.
yeah, even if they know a little French, they're still, I don't know, trying to fit in. I don't get it. But
Yeah.
yes, it is Michel Grenier.
There you go.
That's mine.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The reason why you're here is because today we are going to talk all about community. And I wanted to talk to you about that because you have, with the rest of your crew, developed quite the community over at Which Games First. I've been part of your Discord for a while,
Mhm.
and there's all sorts of stuff going on, and it's just a good bunch of people. But before we get there, before we talk about them, let's
Mhm.
talk about you.
Okay.
So, how did you get into podcasting? Why games? Tell us about yourself. Why are you even here?
Why am I
Why
Not,
are
why
you
am
not
I
here on the
even
show.
here?
I mean, like,
Yeah.
Don't
here in
know.
the game.
You're not justifying your existence.
I
We're
know.
curious
Thank you.
to know
Okay.
your
I was gonna
connection
say
to
that's a tough
gaming.
one for me. I don't know.
42. The answer is 42.
It's always 42.
Always for you too.
Oh man, I love my 42nd birthday. Anyway, all right. Why am I here? All this stuff. All right, so let's start when I was a wee lad.
Sure.
My parents, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but they decided they would buy me Candyland for Christmas. And
Okay.
it was a terrible game, nothing going on really. You just roll, you just draw the card and you move to the space. So I took a magic marker and ruined my awesome gift and wrote like, side paths. If you land here, you can go that way. And like,
Nice.
go back some spaces. And, I altered the game a little bit. And
Mm.
for me, it was a lot more fun then. So, ever since then, I've been cannibalizing terrible board games from the thrift store and, keeping all the parts for prototypes and just kind of designing my own games from there. And
You
even
started
tried,
early.
yeah, I started really early.
Most of us took time to realize that you could
Did
pull
you
things
also
apart.
draw on the walls?
Yeah, I did, and I got in a lot of trouble for that.
Okay, my youngest does that. There
Uh-huh.
is something to creative children. I will be fully admitting that there's so many
Mhm.
creative children, they draw on the wall. Okay,
Yeah.
actually, I didn't, and I will say I'm a creative person.
You don't
But
have to draw on
but
the walls to be creative.
the subtly or like hidden places that my youngest has drawn on the walls that you would not realize were drawn on until later
Like
Oh.
under his
was
bed in the corner?
fascinating. Behind doors where you might not look at for them.
Yeah.
On the TV, you can't actually see it unless it's under
Ah.
certain lighting. Where
Oh,
else
That
sending
is
have
awesome.
I
weird messages
With
discovered
to you.
crayon on
places?
the TV screen, like
Well, marker.
Mark.
right? So you can only see it. It's funny enough, depending on the screen. Anyway, it's fascinating where they can try to hide drawing on things.
Oh yeah, that'd be really creepy if somebody was like staying over the house and they, drop something under their bed and they see this like scrawled writing underneath there too. And, like,
Yeah.
I did that actually. We had a
Oh,
pool
yeah.
table when I was
Mhm.
growing up, and just because I was like, why would anybody be under here? I went underneath and wrote with chalk like, if you're reading this, you've gone too low.
Yes.
Like, and people do discover it. Funny enough, if you
Oh,
wait long
man.
enough,
That
'cause
is
I'm like,
Somebody's
why
going
would
under that.
anybody be under the?
Yeah.
And they go under the table. So
That is fantastic. Oh, I love that.
The funniest thing about drawing on the walls is like nobody ever told you not to, right? Nobody tells you not to. They just assume you know these
explicitly,
rules.
to be
Yeah.
fair,
Mhm.
yes,
Exactly.
no one explicitly says
Right.
don't draw on the walls.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
probably implied don't draw on stuff, but like I didn't, I just saw
No,
canvas.
but it's not.
you
It's
know? Yeah.
not, right? As a kid, nothing is
Mhm.
you don't know any better.
Mhm.
I will
I
be
find
fair.
it so amazing that parents get mad at that. It's like, well, you never told them not to.
And
Yeah.
if your parents are creative, you have so many unique tools to destroy things with that would not be present at other people's homes.
Mhm.
Also true.
I will fully say that.
Sounds
Also
like you have
true.
something specific there.
Oh my God, the number of like permanent markers in various colors, the number of like just bizarre like game related bits or like craft related pieces. I'm like, why is this here? The number of times I found various components of some sort of clay, plasticine, dried
man.
Play-Doh, or something else
Mhm.
wherever.
Yeah.
Well, I also have 3 animals, so it's also really problematic. Where it's like,
'Cause the kids
who
can blame
left
'em.
this? Because now either
Mhm.
the rabbits or the dog has eaten it. Sorry,
These
that's
are
my
these are
household,
serious
guys.
issues for creatives. It's true.
My
It's true.
okay, my rabbits are almost as large as most people's cats.
Oh my god.
So when I say don't let the rabbits get something, it's like, please don't leave shit on the floor.
Yeah.
Sorry for the swearing, but
Sorry for the
yes.
swearing.
I was gonna ask you what the rating was here today, so now I'm learning. a little
It's
bit more.
whatever. It's whatever.
I know we make it up. Sorry for my rants, but this is my household full of
Yes.
fabulously fun components and art things, but like
Oh,
with
yeah.
the animals and children.
As I'm seeing what
Also,
smash up back
animals
there.
and children.
Oh, this is my wall of work.
Oh,
Wall of
nice.
work.
Oh, lovely.
So
Yeah. There you
that's,
go.
that's
I have.
the Spin Master wall.
That's awesome. I've only got one game published so far, and it was through Smirk and Dagger. We published Student Bodies, which is it's kind of a zombie game. It came out when Zombicide and all that stuff came out at the same time as us on Kickstarter, and one of the first like $1 million Kickstarters. So it was a tough sell, but it's a fun game. It's not like the weapons aren't super violent and explosive. It's more like statue, founder's head statue or fire extinguisher. And
Oh,
stuff
right,
like
because
that,
you're in a college or university as students or high school.
Yeah, you're in a high school.
Right.
You've been bitten by a zombie, and you're all racing to the science lab to see if you can find the antidote, and then run back out. And it's kind of cool that like halfway through the game, like the beginning of the game seems easy. There's a couple zombies on the board. You can avoid them with your cards and all that. Then you turn around and you've been running past all the enemies. So you kind of turn around and you're trapped trying to get back out the way you came. So I don't know. It crazy hard to balance, but when we got it right, it was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's like this is just a great example of timing matters, whether you know it or not. It's so random.
Yeah.
Right. We talk about this all the time. The luck of when something comes out. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say, Sen, what do you think when you hear Student Bodies?
Uh-huh.
What do I think?
Come on.
As a Canadian.
Oh, wasn't there a movie?
No. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. You're probably like slightly
Yes.
too old. Maybe. I was thinking the show.
Oh, yeah.
All
That's
I think of when someone says Student Bodies, I just think of the show. Sorry. Go. Never mind.
No, that's all right. It was Zombies 101, but the name
Because
needed
it's a very Canadian reference.
I see.
Yes.
I see. I'm a Quebecois at halfway anyway. My dad is Quebecois.
So you know the guy who was in Are You Afraid of the Dark, who went into Student Bodies, that's now like on the Weather Channel or something like that. Any
like
connection here? No?
no, sorry.
Never mind, guys.
I'm not that Canadian, I guess. I don't know.
But it was
When
filmed
you
in
follow
Montreal, Quebec.
when you
Uh-huh.
follow, like, you can't help it, but you follow, like, these Canadian actors without meaning
Mhm,
to, right? And then you find
mhm.
out where they end up, so
It was like Canadian Saved by the Bell.
Student Bodies,
Oh.
yes, Student Bodies is very much
Oh,
Canadian
okay.
Saved by the Bell,
See,
but
now
it
I
was
got some
also
reference.
mixed in, comics, like comic
Oh,
drawings, because
that's
the
way
main
cooler.
character was
Right,
like,
right. Yeah,
a
doodled
comic
all the
book
time.
artist doodled, and so
Mhm.
all the segue, all the in-betweens were all animated.
Oh, that's
Right.
cool. That's a
Yeah.
nice little
Anyway, a
better
little
twist.
Canadian pop trivia for everybody, because I know you all got Degrassi, but I don't think you got Student
Yes.
Bodies.
Nope, we did not. I don't think we got that this side
There's
of the
something you
border.
can try to find to stream. I don't know if it's available on stream
You
yet.
may recognize a few actors.
There you go.
Mm.
So you got started really young,
Mhm.
and you started by like hacking games apart
Yes.
and wrecking them with markers and things like that. What
Mhm.
was like your impression of like the first time you played a game that you go, "Oh, that's what I like in games,"
Mm.
where it wasn't something you had to hack apart?
I mean, there's one memorable moment when I played Dominion the first time.
Mhm.
It's just like I'd never even seen a deck building game before that, and I
Nobody
think it
has.
was one of the early ones. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
Exactly. It was like one of the
It
it's
first
was
pretty
ones.
much the
Yeah,
earliest one
yeah.
of record.
for like
Mhm,
more generalized mass. It
mhm,
was not like a collector, like some sort of like
yep.
CCG game.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I have to go back a little further than that, though. I think
Okay.
Magic the Gathering Alpha. When I
Yeah.
first saw
Now we're back
people
to the
putting,
CCG.
yeah, right, exactly. It's still good. I love collectible and the card deck building games, but like when I first saw Magic, I'm like, he put a tree on the table and now he's like moving it, and then monsters are coming out. I was like, what? My mind was just blown. I'd never seen anything like that before, and especially because it was something that even though it's not your game that you designed, you're still designing how you play it. Like,
Right.
you make your own deck, and like that actually got me to, because I had kind of, since a little kid, I hadn't really done much with designing games all the time since then. But once that game came out, I was like, ooh, ah, all the like lights went on, and that
Yeah,
that
I
was
think
a
it was
big
that way
deal.
for lots of people. Like Andrew
Mhm,
Wolf's in the chat.
mhm.
He was on the pro tour for a while, and
Oh wow.
he works for Pokemon now. It's like
Mhm,
I make card games because card games kind of hooked. You
Well,
know,
it's like
mhm.
the idea of a genuinely successive game that not only can like it build as I go, but I can influence how it builds.
Oh
hmm
yeah,
Like that's gotta be so satisfying for so
that's
many
wild.
personality types. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Oh man, it's great. Like I've seen it's I can't take credit for any of this, obviously, probably, but I watch a lot of like the gameplays of Magic the Gathering Arena online, and like
yeah.
these people that do the reviews and they show you the deck tech that they make and all that, and then I'll play the deck out and then I'll make a counter deck to it. And I think I've seen players just be kind of surprised by the stuff I threw in there, and then I see it show up other places. I don't know if that's directly from something I did, but it's awesome to see the thing evolve through the actions that you're doing and other people are doing. Like even within the same set of cards, the actual meta changes.
Yeah, which is really cool because this brings us to the actual topic that we want
Oh,
to talk
right.
about, which is community, right? No, it
Hmm.
does because this is how people find people,
It's how
right?
Hmm.
things spread out. Honestly, it's how things become popular.
Hmm.
Really, like how do you bring something to somebody? Like how do they know it even exists?
Hmm.
How do they feel included? And all these things are really where community boils down to. And it's not the easiest, like it's not as simple as saying the word, right? Like
Hmm.
it is really just something you genuinely either build or builds around you because you have something that they're looking for, right?
Hmm.
hmm
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a very important distinction to know, right?
And it's so difficult to like find your people and then expand on that.
Pretty
Because
much, right?
yeah.
People that think like you. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean?
You want them to think like you, but you also want some different voices coming in too. 'Cause that's what I think the word, and you think of the word community, I think about growth. You plant a seed, everybody has something in common. And then from that, you get different perspectives on it, and you start to broaden the community, and suddenly it becomes a thing. And it's tough to actually get that to the point where you can sell something.
Right.
But the gaming community is one of my favorite communities I've ever been a part of, because they're so willing to share their work.
Mhm.
And I think part of that comes from the fact that nobody wants to steal your game idea because it's too hard to publish a game.
That's fair.
Maybe.
You know,
Yeah.
Maybe.
you cannot just, let's be fully explicit here. For the
Hmm.
most part, 99.9999% of the time, you
Hmm.
cannot run off with someone's idea. It is just not a thing that happens, and
Hmm.
everyone will find out very quickly if you did.
Oh yeah, that's the thing too, right? The repercussions are terrible. Like if you straight up stole somebody's game, the whole community will know immediately. But it doesn't.
Yep.
I haven't seen it. Like when I first started designing, I got together. I was with a group called Angry Duck Games. That's where we were. Four of like my really close friends started designing, and at first, we were like going on LegalZoom and like printing up boilerplate NDAs and like keeping our stuff hush hush. But building a community and being open about what you're doing in the gaming industry, at least, is way more important than protecting your idea. Because if people aren't interested, if you don't start to get the ball rolling, it doesn't matter what your idea was.
So there's a lot of words that we're kind of revolving around, with community being the center,
Mhm.
and like all these other words like communication, sharing, being open, being
Mhm.
transparent, inclusion. What
Mhm.
are some other things that you think build a strong community? And what are some tools maybe that you've used or other people have used to really kind of engender that sense of community amongst players of games? What is it about it?
Wow, that's a very big question to try
It
to
is,
tackle.
but
You
no,
Um,
you're
always
going to.
think about how it slowly built for you, because I think
mhm.
that's the way you'll see how you started noticing the connections you were making, right?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, social media has a big hand in how you can reach out to people, but I think that it's the consistency of what you're doing, like having an episode every week out there, um you know always answering people's questions or responding to the things they say. And I think that everybody wants to be part of a group, something, so if you make them feel like they're part of that group, they start to build around you and the personalities at the center of it. And it's been tough for us. I mean, I'm not really good with the social medias. I'm not as consistent as I could be, but I have to force myself to do it more, and to get people interested in what we're doing, and to just be confident in that people want to see what I'm doing. Um,
Yeah, that
and that's
you're
what's tough.
tapping onto, like, I mean, that classic imposter syndrome, right? Like,
Mm,
why is anyone listening to me? But
yeah.
but part of it is also like, it's not just that I want you to listen to me.
Hmm.
It's that I think we should be having a conversation together.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
And I think that's kind of what you're building towards more, is that you're, no,
right.
no, like, come with us for the journey. Like, I'm not talking
Right.
at you. I want you to, like, be part of it.
And I think that's something that's in this community that's really good, is that people want to follow along with you rather than follow the leader,
Hmm.
but and that's good for me, because like I am super imposter syndrome all the time, every day. I put out a game, I'm like, nobody's going to play this. Or even when I'm play testing, it's that for me was the hardest barrier to break by. Is I went to
I
like Metatopia and stuff, and
I think it takes, honest, okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry, my dog is, like, in my
Yeah,
face right now.
it's so cute.
Um, I honestly think it takes most people
Mhm.
roughly, I wanna say, like, 4 to 5 to 6 years to truly get over imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
because you have to feel established enough to realize that it's like,
Mhm.
I have a reason to be here.
Yep.
But that's really what it comes down to, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, if you have a lot of ego, like,
Mhm.
all the better to you, right? Because
Yeah.
you got over this quick. But most of the people out there are kind of like, "But why is someone listening to me? Like,
Mhm.
why does anyone care?" And honestly, because you ask that is honestly part of why they care. That's that
Thank
genuineness.
you.
That's that reason that it's like, "No, no, I'm literally here for the love of this. I want you guys to be part of it. I'm not just doing this to
Mhm.
say, 'Hey, look at me.'"
Yeah, and
Right?
I always feel like people are going to think that that's why I'm doing it, and it's hard to get to convince people that you're doing this not only because you love to do it, but you love to have people enjoy what you're doing.
You want them
You know?
involved.
Yeah,
Yes.
you want them to be part of it, and I always want, I hope people believe me when I say it, like I want feedback regardless of whether it's rough or, I mean, there's a way you can say it that's not, you know, a personal
You're
attack,
like, don't
but
be mean, but I
yeah,
want you to help me.
right, I'm
Constructive
looking for help.
criticism. Constructive
It's
criticism.
such a
There you go.
it's a thin line. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
it
that
is.
advice. So,
And it's interesting, Erica, that you brought up imposter syndrome because that's something that Mikey had brought up
mhm.
himself
Oh,
before.
I didn't know. I didn't realize you brought that up on your own. I thought you guys were like collaborated and like,
No.
No,
oh
this is a
wow.
genuine problem with,
Hmm.
I would say, a vast majority of people. Like,
Hmm.
I suffered from this so much, like so
I feel
much.
you.
I want to say my first few years where I'm like, why does anyone care I'm here? Like, are
Hmm.
they gonna think are they gonna kick me out? Do they think I shouldn't be here?
Oh
Like,
my god.
what have I done to make them
All those
like
little
want?
brain gremlins
No,
just
but
Oh
it's
man.
nattering at
true
you, right?
because there's a part of you that's like, why have I earned this?
Hmm.
And then there's people who act like they've 100% earned it. And you're like, okay, well, if they've earned it, then I
Hmm.
haven't. But you don't know why they're acting like
Right.
that.
And I think people just have it inside. Some of them are like, I don't want to call it like narcissism, but there's a tint of
Confidence.
that.
We'll call it
Yeah, it's like
confidence.
Call
confidence.
it
Let's call it
confidence.
confidence. Yeah.
Because
See?
I have that. I don't have imposter syndrome.
Uh-huh.
Erica is always like, "You're not a good person to talk to about this," because I just don't understand it.
We can
I've
talk. We can
It,
talk.
it took
I've never
time. It
had
took
it.
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
We just did which game first was running the CT Fig, the Connecticut Festival of Indie Games, and we also were doing a bunch of speaking panels, and that the first panel I ever did, I'm like, why would anybody give me like credit for being like, don't I have to be an expert in my field and like know everything about it? And what if they ask me a question I don't know the answer to? I panicked. I look okay on stage, but on the inside, it's like boiling. Like, oh my
It's
god, this is
interesting, eh?
terrifying. Yeah.
It's a
I
thing.
I
Yeah.
Okay.
guess so, yeah.
I know
Hmm.
some designers, honestly, I know some designers who
Hmm.
years in will still 100% have imposter syndrome. I know
Sure.
other people who are like, whatever, I got over it. It's
Yeah.
fine.
I envy them. I mean, I feel like I wish I could. I'm slowly getting over it, and I think what it takes is to just
It's
do the thing you're afraid of.
it's
Just.
finding your place. It's
Hmm.
realizing that this is like the thing I'm doing and it's not necessarily the thing that
Hmm.
person's doing, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and you can't expect everybody in the audience to be enthralled with everything you have to say, but there's always a few people out there that are like, "Oh, I didn't think of that," or "That's some great advice." And I see people. It helps a lot when I'm up there and I see people taking notes,
Or
like
nodding.
like,
Oh,
"Oh yeah,
yeah.
nodding."
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels. I don't know if they realize how much I need that reassurance, but I really, whoever's listening out there that see me on a panel, I fully appreciate that you guys were out there doing that for me.
Or another
Right.
fun one is when you start listening to panels or things like
Hmm.
that, and you're like, I actually know most of this.
Hmm.
Like, you get to the point, like, it really is just experience.
Hmm.
Guys, imposter syndrome out there, it's just experience.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the
Like, it's
more
beaten
experience,
by experience, you mean?
yes,
Hmm.
because
Okay.
you're always ultimately imposter syndrome is I don't have a place here,
Hmm.
right? For whatever reason. And ultimately, gaining experience in whatever it is you're doing starts to eliminate that because now you feel like you understand, and whether or not you fit in is totally kind of different. But like,
Hmm.
you're like, I speak the same language, I know what they're referring to, I have that experience.
Hmm.
Great.
Yeah, that's totally true and really appreciate it.
So let's actually talk about which game first.
Okay.
Why did you start which game first? How did you build up the community around the podcast? And tell me about like the team that you work with. How did they foster community? And where are you going next with which game first and the community that
Hmm.
you've you know built?
Okay. All right. Well, we'll start with who's who in which game first. We've got Celeste Angelis, which old friend of mine. All of these guys are really good old friends of mine. But she is the host, and her brother was Perry DeAngelis, and he was on a popular, before he passed away, but he was on a very popular podcast called The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, which is, great guys. Evan Bernstein is another one of the guys who's on the panel with me also, and he is part of Skeptic's Guide right now too. So we got kind of lucky in that they had a little crossover, skeptics and gamers. There's some crossover there. And plus we could kind of freely advertise for our podcast over there. So some of the people that respected them came over to listen to us, which was really helpful. A lot of Ed Povolitis is the game guy. Everybody has that guy who has the full shelf of all games ever invented, and they've only played like a third of them.
Yeah, you're talking to two of them.
Exactly. Yeah, you know who you are.
Oh my God. Okay, I know people don't like them, call them like shelf of
the shelf of shame.
Yes, but come on.
No,
it is.
Shelf of opportunity.
Exactly.
I know that's
better.
what you want to call it. Okay, I'll be fair. It is a shelf opportunity because if I don't play it and it's still in shrink wrap, there's a good bet that I've probably bundled a bunch of them together to be like a family game night for like an auction.
Oh, that's
to
cool.
raise money for something. That is what I do with your games. If for any reason they don't get played over time, I genuinely try to make sure that I pay it forward.
That's really awesome, actually. So you're making use of it. Plus, I don't know, people collect little knickknacks for the shelf and stupid things like that, like crystal figurines. I mean, whatever. That's your thing. But at least a game, you can potentially do something with it and make it useful.
I have a lot of games.
I'm just trying to help here, okay?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's Ed, Evan, Celeste, and me. The idea, Celeste had this idea that podcasts are taking off, we're all gamers, we're experienced people, might want to hear what we have to say, and she's the one in the group that's the most confident and willing to sell herself and be out there. I was, of course, hesitant. I'm like, why why me? Why would anybody listen to me? But she she pulled the team along and got us to start doing the podcast, and we're at episode 170 now. I know, it's not bad. We're doing 3 games per episode, so it's about 10-15 minutes per review. So they're kind of more like a lighthearted, not super deep dive into the games. Me and Ed, we're the deep divers. So we try to get some depth strategy talk in there and stuff like that. Celeste is definitely more about the story that's being told with the game. Evan too, he likes the raw fun of it. He wants to, so we kind of all have our position in there that we kind of cover, and we do it fairly quickly, like I said, 10 to 15 minutes per game. And each episode is about 45 minutes. So with all the intros. So we just started doing it because we have fun with games, and Celeste wanted to do something. I think part of it was to honor her brother, who was a podcaster too. And the rest of it was just because we wanted to do something together as an activity. And we've been going for a couple of years now. So
yeah, that's great.
Yep.
And when did you start doing things on Discord and really having more of that kind of meta community around a podcast that exists?
Yeah.
But now it has a fan base and a community that you interact with.
Yeah,
Do you want to explain a bit more about Discord just in case? Because to be fair, it's amazing. Sure. It's this assumption that everyone's on it, right? But funny enough, people aren't. So do you want to just give a little bit of what, to be fair, just quickly what Discord is, but really
Discord,
how you built around it, right?
So Discord, I believe Discord started off sort of as a a way to communicate in games, what are they, Call of Duty and stuff like that. People would communicate instead of typing and all that, or using the game speak that was in the game. And then it kind of evolved into a place that's sort of hybrided into a, I don't know, Reddit maybe kind of community, where there's pockets of, groups that you can look for, but mostly you invite your friends to jump in there. And so we started using it to invite people into our world, come join our Discord channel, chat with us there. Early on, I was doing editing the episodes and chatting with people while I edited and letting them hear little pieces of the episode that I was doing. So we're trying to be active on Discord. We have a few people that join us all the time on there, and it's just it's a cool way to make people. It's not like just join our Facebook where it's kind of more open. It's more like I invited you to this place to come with us.
Right.
And I think we get some of our fans really like join us all the time for like chatting on Discord, which is very cool. Yeah, it's a useful tool. I don't know how to describe it any better than that because Ed's our tech guy.
It's such a I find Discord so interesting. Like I love it actually for role-playing games to play role-playing games on because
Oh yeah.
I can build out little sub spaces for the rules, and each character can have their own channel, and I can private message people, and there's video, and I can just drop a picture of a map in there. And so I love it for role-playing games. But
Yeah.
what I find is that a lot of times they're used for like conventions and stuff, and it's just like wild amounts of stuff all over the place. Which
it has to be super organized channels. Often,
Yeah.
I think it really does support more of this idea of a community where
Yeah.
you pop in and out,
Yeah.
and use your main landing as like here's general information, but I have side channels. I've got like open chats, whatever it is. Yeah, I think there's something interesting about using it for conventions.
Yeah.
I don't think it functions quite that way, but that's just
I'd rather
me.
see some other things being used more, but I do like it for community because I think it's the power of like text that lives on past the time when I was there.
Hanging
I
on
think
to
it's really
notes or
powerful.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
even
I've
used it for
scrolled back.
Well, I was gonna say we've even used it for dev sessions. Like
Yep.
the
Oh,
idea
yeah.
of Discord channels to keep notes for like changes through development of games and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
for play
We have a
testing.
whole server for one role-playing game that I'm working on, and
Oh, cool.
my business partner, my co-designer loves it because it's like just all there. And then one of the things that I really do appreciate about it as well is just like all the bots and things you can do with it. There's
So
ways
many
to like
program bots.
personalize
Yeah.
it much
Yeah.
better than Facebook. Like Facebook is like you're done. That's it.
Yep.
But we still haven't done one. Well, we have one for maple syrup, Erica, but it's just we don't
Oh,
do
do
anything
we?
on it. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
I'll
started
be
doing book
fair,
club on it, but
I
we just
like
didn't.
Discord and I like it for like little community groups. I'm totally part of little community groups for like, okay, it's gonna sound silly things, but like, for Animal Crossing or something
Yeah.
like that. I'm totally
Yeah.
in little groups like that. The idea when they get bigger, it's if that's where it's funny because you do want them to be these little groups on
Yeah,
Discord.
I find once there's
There's
too
a
many
max
people,
capacity on these things.
Yeah.
because everything's unthreaded, it just goes wacky if people aren't communicating in the
too
right
much.
spaces, right?
And
Yeah.
it's a different type of modding system too, right? So
Yeah, I mean, for me, like we kind of use Discord in a couple different ways. I have a weekly D&D game that I play there with people from all around the world, and it's good because we have like if you're in a tavern, I'm over here talking, I'm over there talking, room 1, room 2, stuff like that. So you can kind of 2 people have a private conversation, and then the
Oh, that's
GM.
neat.
Yeah, so
that's a
it
great idea
segregates,
for
yeah.
keeping information secret. Because like, okay, anyone who's what are you gonna do? You're gonna leave the room with someone to go have this conversation, right? There's something awkward about that. But funny enough, using a Discord actually facilitates, right? It's like, no, we're just having a private conversation over here. You guys talk amongst yourselves for a minute. You know what I mean?
I think there's some games too that could benefit from that, like having those separate rooms, like using a Discord forum, like oh god, I'm trying to remember the name of the game where it's like
2 rooms in a room.
no, it's this older game, Illuminati. When you're trying to
yeah.
like plot against like other people and you don't want them to know, or
Oh,
any of the war games.
Old-fashioned diplomacy. Hey
Yes,
guys, let's
diplomacy.
jump into a side chat right here.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And if you can sneak into the room, like you text them to sneak into the room to chat, and then they don't see you go and come back and like causes suspicion. Like, I don't know, there's a lot you can do with Discord. Plus posting links in there, throwing pictures in there. Like you can really, do a lot.
I quite like it. I quite like it for a lot of things until it gets unwieldy and huge, and then I don't.
Yes, and it's easy to get out of control. You have to delete some stuff you're not using, and where our stuff, like, and if I look at my screen right now, I'm like, oh my god, it looks looks crazy. I only use about a third of what we have listed in there, but some of it was for like when we did the game design conference.
Right.
Yeah, that was helpful to have like, because on that he did one of the panels on there. Thank you very much. That was awesome.
It's so fun.
Yep. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was good to have like a landing page in there for you to like handle all that business and then move over to like the video stuff. So it's got a lot of uses. I like the Discords.
Yeah. So tell us about those community members who are like there all the time. What's it like to have like like a community that like hangs on hangs out with you like that? It's really cool.
It's really cool, and like I never thought anybody would be like that. Like I never thought we'd have like fans. But one time, like this one really, like, I'll never forget it. I was at PAX Unplugged, and somebody I'd never met, we had our shirts on with the logo, with the dicey hat. Then I had our
Yeah.
pith helmets on and stuff. And so a couple people just walked up and like, "Oh my God, you guys are Which Game First? We love your show." And I was like, whoa, like goosebumps and like so flattered and like surprised that that was happening. And we have like 8,000 downloads and stuff like that. And like, sometimes more, like 10, which, for me that seems like a ton, but like to meet somebody in person that is connected to one of those dots is like, and that they actually liked us. It
They're
wasn't
like,
just like,
I know who you are.
yeah,
That's
like, what? Are
crazy.
you
Yeah.
Mikey G? I'm like, yes. Like, yeah, it was a little overwhelming for me, but
Yeah.
also it felt really, really good. So,
Yeah, that's really neat.
mhm.
What do you do as a group to promote community, to ask people to come to your community? Who do you invite?
Or make
Everybody or
them
just
or help them feel accepted, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've been at first we started with just game designers because Ed and I had already been in that community, so we're like, advertising it there, just word of mouth kind of thing. And
Mhm.
but I know Evan is like trying to broaden us out to like more of the NPR crowd and like people who aren't necessarily gamers, because there's a flood. I mean, gamers are, it's kind of like a cyclical community.
You
Everybody
gain new
knows.
people all the time, right?
Yeah, it's true. But like we're trying to reach to people that, they play maybe Settlers of Catan as the craziest game they've ever played, or like, and
Right.
so that's what we've been up to lately. And we've been TikToking a lot. Like I just started using TikTok to like just share like raw moments behind the scenes when we're actually playing the games or opening new games that we ordered, and just kind of throw it up there, and it gets some response. It's starting to spread. It's like any of the social media stuff, is that you gotta just do it a
You just
lot.
gotta keep going.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
keep going,
Yeah.
even if
It's
you don't. Yeah.
consistency.
Yep. Yeah, it feels like you're shouting into the void for the first couple weeks, but
Yeah.
like
See
once
what
you get a
works.
few likes and and shares, yeah.
It is interesting because when you mentioned, like, when you were talking about, like, imposter syndrome
Hmm.
and social media and things like that. So, the one thing
Yes.
I do or do not do is, like, I don't think anybody will care about anything I ever post, right? So, that's why sometimes I just, like, feel like, "Why aren't you on this social
Hmm.
media platform or this one?" It's like, I don't think
Mhm.
people will care.
Yeah.
It's I don't
Or
feel like necessarily an imposter, but I
Hmm.
also don't think people care about my map drawing, scribbling while I'm designing a game. Like, who's gonna care about that?
See,
Like,
I think that's cool. Like, I'd love to see somebody in the
people
design
like
my
to see
process.
first
internal
follower on TikTok is
process,
Mikey.
Yeah,
right?
there you go. I got you. I'll follow you.
I
Follow
am
me
so
back.
not TikTok. My
No,
kids are like, "Don't TikTok, dad. You'll be so cringe.
dude.
You can't dance."
Can I say though, Sen, that
Mhm.
like so the number of consumers of TikTok tend actually funny enough to be like older,
Mhm.
right? Than necessarily the people who make them. It's kind of fun to
Yeah,
watch.
it's a really odd community. Like
It is.
I did not want to touch TikTok when I first saw it. It looked like a bunch of like young teens kind of just raw taping weird stuff, or like, like I it just and I didn't relate at first, but now there's some funny stuff on there and some clever like camera tricks that people do. But the coolest thing that's happening in TikTok as far as community is concerned is that they have these things where you can stitch together your video with somebody else's. So somebody will sing half of a song and then you'll be expected to like stitch your video on the other half of the screen where you do the second verse or whatever. So
So they
that,
don't get in trouble for copyrights.
well, yeah, that's part of it. I'm sure. I'm sure. But it's a great way to like link people together. They literally call
Yeah.
it stitching. So
I've seen that.
yeah.
Yeah, it actually I will say
Mhm.
TikTok's major credit because it's like honestly, unless you can redirect to
Mhm.
your own personal content, you're not
Mhm.
getting crap out of it. Like really, you're making
Mhm.
it's great, but you're
Yeah.
driving other people to something else.
Mhm.
What's been really interesting is to see how TikTok is just building on itself. So
Yeah.
like the idea of take a meme and make it yourself. What am I
Mhm.
referencing? Take
Right,
this
yeah.
and do this.
There's
It's
a
so
lot of meta stuff,
like
yeah.
everything
Mhm.
is so referential at
Oh,
this
yeah.
point. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and it
Well,
keeps people in that stream because they don't wanna fall behind on where the origin story of something that is happening now came from, you know?
As
oh,
much
there's
as it's
definitely
totally
things,
meaningless.
yeah, where I've gone and looked at where
Yeah.
did this actually originate from, and I've
Mhm.
gone and done the research. But one thing I was watching, and I don't know why I watched this, but it's like, oh, like I like hip hop and I like music and I
Mhm.
like lots of stuff. I like dancing. I like all these things. But
Mhm.
then I saw this one person reacting to a video of somebody reacting to her video of her stitching to another
Yeah.
person, and it was like, this is really, really meta. Like
Yeah.
Yes,
really, really
yeah,
meta.
it's like super
Reacting to
Inception, right?
reacting. There's so
Yeah.
many so much of YouTube, funny
Mhm.
enough, is reacting to
Yeah.
reacting,
Yeah,
if you really look
that
at
blew
it.
my mind. I'm like, I don't know, I'm old, you know, I'm 47 years old, all right? I'm an old man. I reacting to somebody else's reaction to me, it just I did not get that. Like, I just
Without claiming that's what you're doing, that's the key too.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
can't actually state that that's what you're
Mhm.
doing. You have to do
Right.
it sneakily, and then you can get away with it.
It's
Yeah, it's
boggles
such
the
a
mind.
it's a weird thing. And the weirdest thing about it to me is that a lot of my students who are,
Mhm.
17, 18, up into the 20s, they are all they're always so afraid of being judged. That's what
Yep.
they don't want, is
Mm.
being judged. And yet a lot of them are out on TikTok doing things
That's
that are just
exactly
innately
what you
being judged. So it's
Yeah.
very funny.
it's you know what it is? It's because they know that so much of, I think, their social media presence is being judged. So
Mhm.
they're afraid of the consequence of what they're doing, but it's almost like a social norm,
I get
right?
it.
Yeah.
If
So interesting.
if you're gonna be noticed for something anyway. Like
Mhm.
not everybody wants that.
No, of
Yep.
course
Like
not.
in absolute fairness, like it's the whole question, would you rather be rich or famous, right?
Right.
There's quite the difference between the two. And
Mm.
there's a lot of people that would honestly choose fame because
Yeah.
there's something about being recognized to them, right? Where everyone else
Mhm.
is like, "Oh my god, just give me the money." Like
Yeah, I just watched that Anna Delvey thing. Do you know what I'm talking
that
about?
was,
The
I think that was actually quite well done.
Yeah, that was, and
No, I didn't
she
see it.
killed
I
it.
don't know what yours
But,
is.
It's
uh,
kind of what was it?
what is the
Something
title?
Anna.
Yeah,
It,
Making
Making
Anna.
Anna.
Yeah.
And the
Oh,
idea,
right, right, right,
so
right, right,
Mhm.
right, right,
loosely
right, right.
based off of like a true story of basically like, can you
Mhm.
fake being somebody for long enough that everybody believes it?
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the heart
So
of
the
the
opposite of
show.
imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Yeah, that literal like acting out, fake it till you make it,
Mhm.
because there's enough stories to support that that's actually possible.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, I definitely, I mean, people run cons all the time, right?
Mhm.
Um, and with enough knowledge to pass as something, you can probably pass for a good
Oh,
while,
yeah.
and be
If you
fairly
talk with
successful at it, right?
authority, you
Mhm.
Yeah.
might be
With that
amazed what
Yeah.
lower
people
voice,
do.
maybe. It's a lower voice.
Yeah,
Have a
pe
lower
Oh,
voice.
sorry. Yeah,
yeah,
previous
you can't forget that.
conversation. People like lower voices. They're more
Yeah.
authoritative.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I get
yeah,
it,
keep
I
going.
get it.
So in terms of community then, where do you wanna go with it? What do you hope to do with your community, for your community, that will, elevate, your
Mhm.
podcast, elevate the community? What do you hope?
Well, I mean, we just did the Connecticut Festival of Indie Games. That's kind of the direction I think we might be going, and it's just to like take the recognition that we have and kind of bring it out into bringing other gamers together, because that's a really cool like design conference. Basically,
Mhm.
people are showing off their designs that aren't necessarily published yet, and there's kind of an award show that goes with it and stuff. But and there's judges that walk around and industry professionals that kind of like take a look at it. It's like mini gamma, I guess.
Right.
um, but but we'd love to get out in person. And the timing was terrible. Like
Yeah.
COVID
Oh, we get
smacked
that.
us, and yeah, attendance was like about a third of what it normally would be,
I
and
think
we were
that's pretty
yeah.
classic for most of these things right now.
Hmm.
And even honestly, anything I've been at that's trying to function at full capacity,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that the facility you're at can function that way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just be aware that it's okay, guys out there, that
Yeah,
you're
you can
gonna
start
start
small.
slower
Yeah.
Yeah,
because the
you can build up.
facility, whether you're ready or not, the facility's not.
Mhm.
Yep.
So just like little
Yeah.
public service announcement there.
Truth though. It's tough. I think it got to everybody, but like in a way there was some, some kind of fortune out of this misfortune that a lot of playtesting changed kind of the way it happens now.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
know what?
like
That's absolutely true. It's
mhm,
nice to see how much, because online is an option now. The
mhm.
idea of building a game online, it's so much more accessible not only to get
Yeah.
playtesters, but get your game out there.
Oh yeah, it's not only accessible, it's more acceptable too. Like people actually trust it more because for a while they had no other outlet. So more people figured out how to use Tabletopia and and those types of engines there. And now designers just send you their link, and I've play tested games from all over the world. Now I don't have to drive down to my local game store, at a certain time on a certain day and like meet up with people. Now it's like it's there. It might not be the full experience of a game that you tactile and all that, but
Yeah, you'll always lose this. And
mhm,
I like to
mhm.
say, times if you divide the time it took by 3, you
Mhm.
probably have it roughly what real life would be like. But at the same time, it afforded so much
Mhm.
more to get played and by so many more people.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was a boon, yeah.
But oh
It's
my god, the time increase is exponential.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
actually pretty interesting. Like, there's definitely games that we're getting now that I can tell that they were kind of designed on Tabletopia
Play
Mhm.
or
tested
ta
during COVID.
Yep,
yeah.
Yes.
yep.
I will say that will be a thing. And
Mhm,
there's nothing people could have done about it. Let's be fully honest. But the
mhm.
minute a game goes from being very virtual back to tactile and it was not tested that way, there
Yeah,
will be translation issues.
yep. Yeah, there's something it's just it could be something as simple as how long it takes to set up and shuffle or, because the
Right.
setup and
You
cleanup is
gotta make
done,
that.
you know? Eh,
All of it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's tons of things that like if your game is a exciting dice game where you have a fistful of 12 dice and you can't simulate that online and you don't know what it's going to look like on a table either. So,
That's the other thing.
yeah.
It was very interesting. It was a perfect band-aid, I'll put
Mhm.
it that way.
Yeah.
But it created its own interesting
Mhm.
uh challenges.
Yeah, and there were a lot of online communities that popped up around playtesting itself.
I
Mhm.
think that's great
Yeah,
too.
Yeah. That's
and a
really
lot
good.
of
Yeah.
people made pretty good friends with people they play tested. Like, oh, let's trade play tests. Let's do this thing. And so it was,
Yeah.
gathering virtually over an activity.
Create little designer groups, which
Yeah,
Mhm.
honestly,
lots of them,
guys, if
lots of
you
them.
create that, hang on to that because
Mhm.
that peer feedback is so valuable and so hard to cultivate that if
Mhm.
you have groups where you have that, it's essentially like having free developers if you trust their instincts.
Yes, you
Mhm.
trust them first and
Like
foremost.
assuming the person is trying to shape the game that you're intending it to be, that's a whole other conversation.
Mhm.
But if they have that instinct and like you trust what they're saying to you,
Mhm.
you basically got a free developer,
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
right?
kinda interesting, Erica. I was actually kinda lamenting this, like, maybe it was even yesterday, when somebody asked me about GAC. And like, "Oh, we really don't
We
exist in the
really
same
need to
way."
bring that back because I think I came in right at like when it was sort of petering out, like who was doing what.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
GAC, for people who don't know, is the Game Artisans of Canada. And
Oh.
because there really isn't not a lot, like there's very few Canadian publishers. Funny
Mhm.
enough, as this weird little collective, we would be these designers who would essentially go down to all these American uh, conventions. And it was
Mhm.
like this strange little group of us because there was quite a number of us, but
Love
we
that.
didn't really have anybody to share with here. Right? So it
Mhm.
was really like taking ourselves down to them and we made a group.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's pretty remarkable. Like, if you look at the group, we've got, people who've gone to on to run their own publishing companies. The vast majority of GAC members are published, multiply published for most of us. And we work together all the time. And we like Erica and I and Elara, Daryl before, everybody was GAC members.
Yeah, Chris
And
Chung,
yep, Jay
yeah, Jay
Cormier,
Cormier,
Oh
like
wow, awesome.
Gavin, and Paul and
yeah,
Matt, who do Roxy
Al
Games is
Roxley, yeah.
basically that. So lots of people who you know, like Santorini, Gord, he's a game artisan. So anyway,
You
lots
wouldn't
and
know we're
lots of
all
stuff.
Canadian, but we are.
But we've actually lost our community because we've all become too big for our britches in some weird way, right?
Hard
We've all
to
gone on.
maintain is different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're also old-ish, most of us, right? Not Erica, but a lot of
No,
the rest of us are like of
okay,
that
I
older
will
era where it's like
fully admit
Discord. What is Discord?
I'm 40 this year, but I am very tech savvy. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I
Erica
could
is
use
a
a little more
decade
text.
younger than me this year, so there you go.
What?
I
Oh,
know.
Yeah, I'll be
you
50 this year.
youngins.
I'll be 50. I'm older than you.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's just this thing that we don't get together much. So it was all virtual. It was a virtual community for the longest of time. But then maybe about 6 years ago, I think we started really actually kind of rolling with like, oh, we're all getting published. A lot of us are published now, and we all had our own things, and we ended up diverting our view from inward towards the group to outwards towards our own personal things, right? And we have a lot of little enclaves that kind of work together. So like Alara, myself, Erica, we kind of design together sometimes. Daryl's in that group. You know, the southwestern Ontario people kind of stick together. The Vancouver people stick together. And that's sort of the way it always was. The Calgary people.
It's like almost like a proximity thing, like literally
Yeah,
how close are
they're
we?
all
If you
chapters,
live in
right?
Ontario, we all know each other, right? Like if you live in like kind of like, to be fair, it's kind of true. But it's hard once you get outside of that because the distance between Toronto and Vancouver is like Toronto to Florida.
It's real far. It's
People don't
3,000
think about
kilometers.
that,
Wow,
but
that is
it's
over 3,000
crazy.
kilometers.
Yeah.
it's really far to cross Canada.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is that I think what we've lost, Erica, is we don't have a lot of people with the bandwidth to mentor anymore.
It's the
Because
mentor and then finding the new people.
well, you know, I think finding the new people would be actually kind of pretty easy because there's a lot of people who are very interested in game design and who are Canadian who would probably say if I put out a message, hey, we're reinvigorating the game designers of Canada. But the problem with it was that wasn't like an open group; it was a very closed group. You had to like be invited to be part of it.
That
So
was part of it. It's like
I don't
someone
think
was going to
anybody
take
has
that
the
on
wherewithal
for
to do
you.
any of that, right?
We almost need to set up our own, the tabletop mentor program, but we do it a little bit more like one-on-one.
Well, so I mean, news is that I'm one of the board members for Tabletop Mentorship Program. So we
Nice.
might be able to work through them somehow or bring some of the ideals that we had from GAC over there. But I do think there's something intrinsically different about being Canadian. And it's not just that we like meeple
Kinda
syrup
true.
on everything,
No,
or that
no,
we say a lot or foyer.
I will say, yeah, there is a
Really,
difference.
that is the way you think about it, Erica. I think we should think about it this way: is that whenever you don't know how to pronounce a word, just pretend you're Canadian and say it's foyer, it's Grenier, it's the
See,
A.
there's a part of me that does that. As a Canadian, I start to think like, what's the root of this word? Is it Latin? I'll pronounce it this way. If it's French, I'll pronounce it this way.
There you
If
go.
it's like Greek, I'll pronounce it this way.
Oh man, I'm obsessed with doing
There's too many
etymologies.
vowels. Okay,
Too many
so
vowels.
it depends on like what if you're an Asian culture, I actually there's a certain way I'm going to pronounce your vowels. If it's like it depends on phonetically how that language has structured it to like how I already can pronounce your word. You just have to tell me where it's from.
I mean, the fact that you've paid that much attention to it, it puts you like light years
I'm
ahead
a
of a bunch of
teacher.
people.
I'm a
Oh,
teacher,
okay.
so I cannot tell you how many names
Oh,
and
yeah.
languages
various cultures.
Okay, I was an elementary school teacher in Toronto for over a decade.
Which is
I
like
will just put it that way.
possibly one of the most multicultural cities in the world,
I
right?
think it's supposed to be. I think it has more languages than anywhere else. Like we were over 150 languages at this
It's
point.
fairly ridiculous and
Yeah.
awesome
Wow.
all at the same time, right?
That's
It's one of the
amazing.
best places to be. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff about community. how we can go from virtual back to reality. Some
It's
of
gonna
us are
be an
going through our
interesting
first cons in
travel.
like
It
Mhm.
the
is.
last
It's
two
gonna be
years.
different.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
people are coming in with a lot of new tools in their toolbox. You know what I mean? Now they don't either only do online or only in person playtest. Now they probably have a little bit of a hybrid system, or do the early playtesting maybe online because it's easy to switch stuff, and then start going to the physical prototypes more in person. I don't know. I think people have more options now, and people are less afraid to try those different options since they were kind of forced into something they might not have been comfortable with before.
Have you been noticing anything with your community about like I'm sure you probably gained a lot of people over COVID.
Mm,
Um, when you try to bring them together, have you
mhm,
noticed that like is it very much an online community or are they up for meeting
mm,
in person? I'm just curious because I think that's going to be a very big transition factor for a lot of people is like you built an online community and that's
mhm.
actually okay too.
Yeah.
Doesn't
I mean,
have to translate to on a person, but
I, I
how
feel like
is that?
I feel like people are still a little spooked to get together in
Mhm.
person. Like we used to have this thing, Gil Hova would go to it, and like Jeff Engelstein and stuff like that would go to this thing at Whole Foods in New York,
Yep.
and just a big upper floor just full of people like doing their prototypes and stuff. It was wild. It was like a little mini
Mhm.
convention that would happen every once in a while. And it's kind of like it died during COVID, but there's starting to be a little talk about, I'm on a couple of different like places on Facebook where it's like, oh, we're running a game this Thursday for 6 people. I don't see these big sweeping like everybody's welcome. Join us on the top floor. I don't
We're
Yeah.
see that
not there
yet.
yet.
I don't
Yeah,
think
we're
we're
not
Yeah.
there
there yet.
yet. I think
No.
there's a couple that I've seen just locally, like
Mhm,
in a city that's about maybe an hour away from me in Guelph. Guelph is a
mhm.
funny word.
Guelph.
Yeah, but they're like, hey, we've got room for about this many people at this
Mhm,
cafe, and let's do it. And so I think people are starting to get out of there because
mhm,
I will say, like, I did not play test a lot over COVID.
mhm.
I did a lot of development using virtual tools for other
Yep.
people, but I didn't play test my own games because I don't like it. I don't like
Mhm.
I don't get the same feel from it. Like
It's not
I'm
the
a very
same.
Yeah.
visual play tester in terms like I don't actually care what you do. I watch you. I don't
Yep.
care what you say. I do care what you say. I do, but I watch you and I care more what you do, how you
Yeah.
act, what you say while you're playing the game, not after. And so if I
Yeah.
can't see that, I don't want to
Right.
do it.
And that's like during a blind play test, especially, you want to watch people's reactions to see what they're focusing on in the rule book, to see what they're doing on the downtime. Like you don't really get that online as much.
Not as much
Um,
anyways, unless they're
yeah.
willing to video record themselves,
Yeah.
Well,
which is
I
a big
think
ask, but
if you're playing with them, obviously you can Zoom, right? But I
Mhm,
think that's what became interesting is that the random group of playtesters doesn't really work online. It really turns into a cultivated group of playtesters.
mhm,
There's a very big difference I noticed when it switched because obviously, like, I mean, depending on like where you were in the game
mhm,
development, like you had to play with somebody, right? Like I have to get this in
mhm.
front of and so COVID, I mean, made everything very uniquely special.
Oh yeah.
But I think, and this is where it got really hard for some people, I think, but maybe other people who were lucky enough to new people, you needed that that core group
Mhm.
to really get through it because you had to play test. You know what I
yeah,
Yeah.
mean?
and I think it's still that way in real life. You need that core
Mhm,
group to sort of have that critical mass, right, of people to do
yep.
something. And I've always talked about that in terms of community. There always needs to be enough critical mass, or else everybody just kind of falls off, which is sort
Mhm,
of what happened to the game artisans, right? We still have the
yep.
name and we know each
There's
other.
enough high people, but they have to put the
Mhm.
time in.
Yeah,
I
and the
mean, we're
time and the
not good
effort into it.
examples though, Sen.
No.
We've got like full-time jobs, kids, and we're
Ouch.
both on like multiple other social media things. I think other people need to take the reins here.
Well, yeah,
Mhm,
also we're apparently old, so
And we're old.
mhm.
there you go. Um,
Yeah.
you know what? We've talked for almost an hour, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about what you're doing in game design. So after Student Bodies,
Mhm.
what's happening? What are you working on? Is there anything that we could maybe look forward to? Is there anything other people could help you test out there
Yeah,
that joined your
absolutely.
community?
Well, we made this joke on our show about otters. Like, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna make a game called Otter Chaos, And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's something I can't play test online though. It's kind of like one of those things where you put a card down, everybody tries to grab it, and
You
like
need
Yeah.
you need
yeah.
okay, anything
Mhm.
that is tactile or a
Mhm.
dexterity game is screwed when you
Mhm.
can't be in person, guys. Party has this problem too. I had a really big
Yeah.
problem getting a party game going because
Mhm.
my playtest groups were never enough people. So even if I thought it worked, maybe it only worked up to 4.
Mhm.
It didn't necessarily work up to 6.
Yeah,
That's a
it's hard to tell.
problem.
Oh, the party game especially. Every party game has its like breaking point where it's just too much like
Too many cooks in the
downtime. You're
kitchen is
waiting,
what
and
I
yeah,
call it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Too many chefs. Yeah. So I haven't done a ton of game design lately because I've been working on like mostly the podcast stuff and all that. But every once in a while, I'll get the bug, and I'll start working on, and I'll kind of just dig into my old notes of stuff that I was working on before. I did like me and Ed are thinking about reviving a virus game, like where you're basically playing you're in a petri dish. It's called Petri Wars right now is the name, like working title. And we kickstarted it a long time ago when it was kind of way too early for it, but we dug it out again. It's still a lot of fun, like strategy game where you grow. You have to choose how to use your food each turn to grow or to attack and each one of the tiles flips over and they have a different kind of like virus like things that they're better at, like this one protects itself, etc. And you can flip ones that have extra DNA, and then when you get to a certain point of DNA you get like ability cards that all your cells can do this or that. So it's a fun game. It's a really good strategy game, and we had it out there and it tested really well, but we've been so busy with our other stuff that it's mostly just me kind of like going reminiscing about it. I don't know. I'm getting the bug again though. I'm definitely getting the bug.
Yeah, I'm actually making my first prototype in a long time, like physical prototype. I'm gonna print it out and cut it up, and I've
I
got
love that.
blank dice here to put stickers
Yeah.
I
on.
wish
Oh
I could
man.
show you guys
Yeah. I
stuff,
want
but I
to.
don't
Let me
think I'm
see if I
allowed.
can. Let me see if I can point the camera here. Hold
But
on.
it's
I
so
got.
different when you get to physically touch it,
Yeah,
right?
now I want to make this prototype, right? It's like when I have to do
Oh
digital
yeah.
assets, it's like I don't.
I've
It's
never worked
easier
with
in
so
some
much
ways, but
plastic in my life, and I'm at the point where I'm like, guys, can you just send me everything because I need
Yeah.
to know that this works.
This is. I bought some hexagon paper. It's
ooh, look
like
at
so
that.
awesome. Yeah, for prototyping. I have a whole dresser. I can't point it here. Let's see. But like stuff like this, a bag of lizards.
You're like,
I
why not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I use them as pawns, but I had a game where I was making like a multi-level sort of uh, game where you roll colored dice and you choose which color you use for which ability. So like
Right.
all blue all blue hexes this happens, all green hexes that happens, and I'm moving to the next yellow hex, like that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
there's multiple layers. Your lizards are jumping around on the tree and stuff. So, I sometimes I get inspired at the junk store, the dollar store.
Sure.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, it's like I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. I see
you see it.
something, it's like, oh, that
That's
would make a cool
that's
game.
totally,
Yeah.
I swear to God, your first few years in
Mhm.
particular of game design is hitting up
Mhm.
the dollar store to be like, that is gonna be my new component is right
Yep.
there
Yep.
because I also know it's mass manufactured.
Mhm.
Right.
That's
There's lots
true.
of
You can
them.
get it.
In if I ever see anything that looks cool and has different colors of cool, then
Mhm.
I'm buying like 4 of each of those things
Yep.
because
Yeah.
I'll make a game out of it.
I always wonder if people like wonder why I'm buying certain things that I buy, like a box of magnets or like, just weird like anytime I see a group of things that are all the same, I think
Yeah,
of it
I
as a
buy
game
it all.
component. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
always.
would assume they just think you're a teacher.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
Teachers do a lot of that.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I cannot tell you how much money I spent at the dollar store just on like between science and like classroom setup.
Man.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't be a
A
teacher because
lot.
I'd end up spending my whole paycheck to put it back into the class, and I'm sure
You
that
spend
happens
a
too
lot of
often.
money on
Mhm.
books and materials.
Yep, yep.
Yep. That's the deal.
Yep.
Well, hey, where can people find you, and on any of the social medias if they'd like to join the community for Which Came
Ah,
First?
Yeah, I jump in there, see,
well
test things, talk about stuff.
well, we were pretty lucky that our name was so weird, so we got Which Game First on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can
Oh,
find us under that
nice.
same name on all of them, and, my personal name on TikTok is WGF. I don't wanna say it backwards, yes, WGF, dash Mikey G.
Which
Or
Game
yeah.
First dash Mikey
which
G.
game?
Okay, I got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so all the other social medias are just which game first, and you should be able to find us there. That's the name of our website too. All of our 170 almost episodes are up there now.
Nice.
To check that out. And you can still go get the Board Game Design Conference, which had Sen. It had a bunch of different people on there, like Martin Wallace was on there, and we had Reiner Nizia, Kurt Covert. So some names
Nice combination of people. Go check that out.
Yeah, it's great. So $10, and I think you get 12 videos that are about an hour long each. So good stuff.
It's a veritable bargoon.
Ooh,
It is.
excellent.
All these new words I'm learning from Sen in the last couple of weeks.
That is a good one.
Yeah. If you want to find me on social media, I am usually at Senfeng Lim. Well, I am. There's nobody else with my name. So
You
that
are
would be me.
Senfeng Lim.
I am that person. That's my
one and
Twitter
only.
handle. So tweet at me if you want to reach out. Erica, where are you?
I'm at Erica Buyuris.
There you go. Also,
Yes.
I'm
the first
probably
of
the
her
only one
name.
you're gonna find.
Yeah.
Alara's not here, but you can find her at TT Void on Twitter. She actually tweets now. It's pretty
I
cool.
know, it's so nice.
Yeah. And then if you want to find all of us, it's at Meeple Syrup. If you like what you heard tonight, if you want to hear more things like it, you can support us at patreon.com/meeplesyrup to help keep the lights on, help pay for all the software that we use to run the show and whatnot. And we are, hopefully looking into convention stuff happening. Breakout Con is our home con in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So we're going to be planning on doing something there. And I believe last time we checked, it was July. Was it July?
It's supposed to be July now.
Okay. So
Which, unless you're going to San Diego Comic-Con, you should be fine.
Yeah. Look for something in July from us at Breakout Con. And I usually do go to Comic-Con, but I want to stay home. I'm kind of the last 2 years I've said you should stay home more. So
The one other thing we can look at doing potentially, Sen, are you going to be at Gen Con?
Maybe.
That's another maybe. I don't think it's necessarily we can sponsor someone going, but I think it might be interesting to meet up.
Yeah,
potentially.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll be
that's the
looking
other
for
thing.
that.
We could do a whole bunch of things, actually. I think that might be actually neat. So there's a couple things I need to talk to you about after the show, Erica, that might sway some of these things in terms of what we can do, where we can do it. And you just said something that was important. Oh, yeah, Gen Con. Oh, so this is why I might not be able to go to Gen Con versus I can go to Breakout because it's closer, is that my teaching schedule's changed. Remember how I used to teach May, June? Now I teach June, July, August. So
okay.
It kind of screwed me up a little bit. But
yeah, it's like the first week of August or something.
Yeah. Well, if you folks
that's the
end up
problem.
there, let me know. Like I usually go to Gen Con. I'll try to meet up with you guys there.
I will be there because I'm already booked for work. So
amazing. All right, cool.
Yeah, see, that's what happens when your work isn't somewhere else. Your work is in games. All the
if
time,
I was in teaching, I'd probably still go. Well,
yeah, because you're out there. My class doesn't happen to be out there.
No.
So on that note, Mr. Grenier, Mikey G, what's your final advice to the people who are watching the show?
I think. All right, here we go. Ready? There's somebody out there who hates your game design, but there's also somebody out there who absolutely loves it.
It's true.
So,
yeah.
Yep. And not everybody's going to like it. So, you want that level of passion on either side. That means people care about it and are excited about it. So just keep designing. You don't know them yet, but somebody out there loves your game.
I think that's beautiful advice for honestly anything you make.
Yeah.
Because it's not meant, honestly, guys, it's not meant for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing that is.
Yep.
Yeah,
makes
and
it
making
special.
something for the average just means your game is average.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, let's look at what is coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're going to bring this into a stream on solo mode. Hey, here we go. We have next week, David Turksey from all the way across the pond is coming at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So that's a special time. Note that it's 2 hours earlier than normal. Erica, if you're available, awesome. If you're not, I'll go solo with David, I guess, which is totally fine by me.
Should be good.
Yeah. April 6th will be our host panel. And this is like 2 days before we leave, I think, for the gathering. So we're going to be talking about the line, that very fine gray fuzzy line between mass and hobby. And now there are definitely fuzzy parts of it, but there are definitely very
I
bold
mean,
black
there's sort
line
of,
parts to it
yeah, I'm
too.
gonna say there's definitely rules that kind of separate the two a bit, but there's some fuzzy lines as we get to kind of like the outside of it.
Yeah, and Erica, having been working with Spin Master for a while now, you're going to be, giving us the goods, I think. So that's great. April 13th, Hirsch Gluck from Hero Time is coming. Hirsch is the owner operator of a manufacturer. So we get to talk to a manufacturer. Tim Eisner, whose game is on Kickstarter right now through Druid City Games, Title Blades 2. Tim is coming on April 20th to talk about sustainable publishing. When he's not making huge, giant games for Druid City, he is also self publishing his games like Canopy in as economical and sustainable a way as possible. So we'll talk to him about that. It might also be good to pick Hirsch's brain about sustainability as well. At some point in the near future, speaking of sustainability, by the way, April 20th, 27th, those are the days that are around Earth Day, I believe. And Panda GM wanted to come to talk about manufacturing with sustainability in mind. Unfortunately, those dates are already taken, so we'll get to them maybe in the future. But just to know that a lot more manufacturers are thinking about how do we do this sustainably, which is great. April 27th, we have Light and N Games coming from Korea, which is kind of Erica's long last. You get what you wish, Erica. Some people are
I
coming
want
from
to know
Korea,
about Asian publishers, guys.
right?
Come on.
Yeah, me
And
too.
everything else in between. And then on May 4th, we have our next host panel, except we don't know what we're talking about. So
I
if
think we have a poll. You asked a question about that,
I
right?
did. So if you're on the Maple Syrup Shop Talk page on Facebook, you can let us know the things you'd like us to talk about, and we'll pick one topic or various topics from there. Depends how deep they are. And Alara, myself, and Erica will get at it. Alara will be back more likely closer to the end of April because that's when her contract ends, and so
Mm.
she'll be a little more freer at that point. She went ahead and took an extension, and that's why we've all been screwed up. We said February, and it's already like end of March, and
She's coming back
she's
just
coming back. Don't
later.
worry. All right, everybody, we will see you next week at a different time, earlier, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when David Turksey comes to talk about solo games. All right. That's it from us tonight. We are saying so long from beautiful Maple Syrup Land, wherever you are. Enjoy yourself. See you later, everybody. Good night.
Good night,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.